Some things fall because gravity takes them. Others fall because the universe stops believing they deserve to rise. Caleb Walker saw her drop out of the burning sky over Vare, 9 like a star that had forgotten how to shine. The battle was over, or close enough that the machines had stopped pretending anyone was winning. Above him, the clouds glowed orange from silent fires beyond the atmosphere. Below him, the plains stretched for miles in black glass, cracked by heat, dusted with pale ash, and littered with pieces of ships that would never fly again. His suit kept warning him in a calm female voice that oxygen was at 22%, left shoulder servo was offline, coolant pressure was unstable, and every reasonable survival protocol recommended immediate withdrawal. Caleb ignored all of it. He was an engineer, not a hero. 34 years old, white skin burned red at the jaw where his helmet seal had cracked, dark hair stuck to his forehead with sweat, gray eyes narrowed against the storm grit. His job had been simple. Cross the dead zone. Find the communications relay. Restore one emergency channel so the extraction birds could find whoever was still breathing. He had already passed 3 broken drones, 1 collapsed landing strut, and the blackened shell of a transport with the name Mercy Bell still visible under a smear of dust. Nothing about this place wanted saving. Then the sky moved. At first, he thought it was debris. A dark shape spinning through the smoke, too graceful to be metal, too heavy to be cloth. It fell through a gap in the clouds, trailing sparks of blue-white light from a damaged flight harness. Then the shape turned, just once, and Caleb saw the outline of a woman. Tall, armored, alien. Her skin flashed silver blue beneath torn plates of ceremonial combat gear. Her eyes were bright, even from a distance, twin points of cold fire in the haze. And behind her shoulders, where the great wing structures of an Aurelian warrior should have spread wide enough to shadow a house, there was only shattered framework and drifting feathers of light from the broken harness. Caleb stopped breathing for half a second. Every soldier in the frontier knew the Aurelians. Skyborn, proud, fast enough to cross a canyon before a human could blink. Their warriors did not walk into battle. They descended. They were the reason entire units learned to fear the sound of wind above them. His helmet tagged her automatically. Enemy command class. Extreme caution. Do not engage without support. Caleb watched her fall toward the glass plane, and something older than protocol moved in his chest. He ran. His boots slipped over melted sand. His damaged servo screamed in his left knee. The suit voice warned him again, sharper this time, but he kept running, one hand clamped around the emergency tether at his belt. The alien hit the slope ahead of him hard enough to send dust rolling outward in a soft gray wave. Not a crash. Not exactly. More like the world had caught her badly. Caleb reached her 20 seconds later, lungs burning, rifle raised because training did not disappear just because compassion showed up. She lay half covered in ash near the edge of a ravine, silver blue skin dim under the storm light, one hand still locked around a broken spear staff. Her armor was dented, scorched, and marked with a crest Caleb recognized from battlefield briefings, the Sky Air Guard. Not just a warrior. Someone important. Someone dangerous. Her eyes opened before he could step closer. They were brighter than his visor could process, pale gold at the center, white at the edges, alive with pain and fury, and a kind of shame Caleb understood before he understood why. She tried to lift the spear. Her arm failed. Stay back, groundborn. She whispered through the translator, voice rough but still carrying the shape of command. Caleb lowered the rifle 2 inches. Not enough to be stupid. Enough to be human. Easy, he said. I'm not here to finish anything. Her gaze moved over his cracked armor, the faded Earth Marine Corps patch, the repair kit strapped to his thigh. Her mouth tightened. Then you are lost. A gust of hot wind pushed ash between them. Something small and metallic rolled against Caleb's boot, a fragment of her flight harness, still blinking red. He looked from it to the empty space behind her shoulders, and for one quiet second, even the alarms in his helmet seemed far away. She saw him notice. Her expression changed faster than anger, colder than fear. Do not look at me, she said. Caleb knelt anyway, slow, careful, both hands visible. You're bleeding power from that harness. If I don't shut it down, it'll cook your nerves. Let it. He paused. The battlefield hummed around them, miles of ruined technology cooling under an alien sun. No, her eyes narrowed. I led the strike that broke your line. I figured. I killed your machines. Most of them were government property. I am your enemy. Caleb opened his med pack with one hand. The white seal hissed in the dusty air. Right now, you're somebody who fell. For the first time, she had no answer. Above them, thunder moved inside the orange clouds, slow and heavy, like the sky clearing its throat. Caleb reached for the damaged harness at her back, expecting her to curse him, strike him, do anything pride demanded. Instead, she turned her face toward the ravine, jaw trembling once before she forced it still. Aurelian warriors do not fall twice, she said. Caleb cut the sparking cable, and the red light died between his fingers. Then I guess we make sure you don't. Caleb's gloves were not made for surgery, but they were steady. That had always been his one useful gift. When everybody else shouted, ran, prayed, or broke, his hand stayed calm. He clipped the last sparking filament from Veolara's ruined flight harness and watched the diagnostic light fade from angry red to dead gray. The smell of burned insulation mixed with the dry mineral scent of the battlefield. His suit filter struggled with it, clicking softly near his jaw. You should have left it, Veolara said. Her voice was quiet now, not weaker, just pulled inward. The harness carries my rank, my flight record, my house name. Caleb sealed the exposed wire with a strip of heat tape. It was carrying a feedback loop into your spine. Better that than emptiness. He looked at her then. Not long. Long enough. The space behind her shoulders was framed by broken gold brackets and dim crystal nodes, all built for wings that were no longer there. The suit's medical skin showed shock, dehydration, neural strain, and a dozen warnings written in colors he did not like. But none of that explained the way she stared past him, not at the sky, not at the ravine, but at some invisible place where she still remembered herself whole. Caleb pulled a compression blanket from his pack and unfolded it with a metallic whisper. I am going to move you before that storm line reaches us. Her eyes sharpened. Touch me, and I will break your arm. You can try after you stop shaking. For a second, he thought she might laugh. She did not. The wind rose instead, pushing ash across the glass plane in pale ribbons. Caleb checked the horizon. The orange clouds were crawling lower, lit from inside by ion flashes. On Vare 9, storms did not just bring rain. They brought static strong enough to blind sensors and charge loose metal until it jumped like a living thing. The dead did not care. The living had to move. His map flickered in his visor, then steadied for half a breath. Half a mile south stood the wreck of the Mercy Bell, the human transport he had passed earlier. Its hull was cracked, but mostly intact. Shelter. Maybe a working heater. Maybe a radio coil he could salvage. Maybe nothing. Still better than waiting under an angry sky. There is a ship, he said. Human wreck. South by southwest. Can you stand? Veolara looked at him as if he had asked whether stars could kneel. Aurelian warriors are not carried. Caleb nodded once. Good to know. He slid one arm behind her shoulders and the other beneath the rigid side plates of her armor. She made a sharp sound, more anger than pain, and grabbed the front of his suit with startling strength. I said no. I heard you. Then obey. Caleb lifted carefully, letting the suit's servos take what they could, though the left shoulder motor coughed and skipped. Veolara went still in his arms, not from surrender, but from the shock of being held without being owned, moved without being mocked, helped without being reduced. Her fingers stayed locked against his chest plate. Through the cracked outer shell, he could feel the faint tremor of her hand. You are either brave, she whispered, or poorly educated. Caleb started down the slope, boots grinding softly over black glass. My teacher said both. The storm chased them. Every few seconds, blue light flashed across the plain and made the wreckage appear in frozen pieces. A wheel half buried in ash, a torn banner caught on antenna wire, the long shadow of Veolara's spear dragging behind them until Caleb hooked it under his pack strap because it seemed wrong to leave it. She noticed. Of course she noticed. That weapon is sacred. Then stop dropping sacred things. Her eyes moved to his face, searching for insult. Finding none seemed to disturb her more than cruelty would have. They crossed the first 100 yards in silence. Caleb's oxygen dipped to 18%. His ribs ached where the impact foam inside his suit had hardened wrong. Twice, Veolara tried to shift her weight, as if pride alone could make her lighter. Each time, Pain pulled her breath thin, and each time Caleb pretended not to hear. That was a kindness too. Not looking when someone was breaking. Not naming the thing they were not ready to survive. At the foot of the next rise, the ground shook with distant thunder. Veilira turned her face toward the clouds. For one instant, her eyes reflected the burning sky, and Caleb saw the warrior she had been before the fall. Not fragile, not defeated, just stranded inside a body that no longer answered an old command. "My people will see the smoke," she said. "They will come." Caleb adjusted his grip and kept walking. For rescue, her silence was answer enough. The Mercy Bell emerged through the dust like a dark whale beached on another world. Its side hatch hung open, swinging a few inches in the charged wind. Caleb stepped inside just as the first hard grains of storm ice struck the hull behind them, sharp as thrown gravel. The sound filled the dead transport in 1,000 tiny taps. He lowered Veilira onto a padded cargo bench and braced her with his own rolled jacket before she could collapse sideways. She looked at the jacket, then at him. "Why do you keep giving away pieces of your survival?" Caleb turned toward the ruined control panel and began pulling it open. "Because I am still using the important parts." "And what parts are those?" His flashlight clicked on, cutting a white beam through the dark. Dust floated in it like slow snow. Caleb glanced back once, tired eyes, cracked visor, hands already searching for a live wire. Hands, breath, choice. Outside, the storm swallowed the battlefield. Inside, for the first time since she had fallen, Veilira stopped looking at the place where her wings had been. The Mercy Bell had died with its lights still trying to remember their purpose. Caleb found 3 emergency strips along the ceiling, 2 broken, one flickering in a weak amber pulse that made the cargo bay breathe in and out of shadow. Each flash showed Veilira on the bench, sitting too straight for someone held together by pain. One silver-blue hand braced against the wall, her bright eyes following every movement he made. Outside, the storm scratched at the hull like 1,000 impatient fingers. Inside, the air smelled of cold metal, burned plastic, and old rain trapped in the ventilation foam. Caleb worked beneath the control panel with his shoulders wedged between a snapped console and a cargo brace. "Good news," he said, pulling a nest of cables into the light. "The heater is not completely dead." Veilira's voice came from the dark behind him. "And the bad news? It is emotionally dead." She blinked once. "Your machine has emotions? This one has resentment." He stripped the wire with his teeth, then stopped when his jaw reminded him that his helmet seal had cracked there. A thin taste of copper touched his tongue. He ignored it and kept working by hand. The heater coughed 3 times, hissed, then pushed a tired ribbon of warm air through the vent near Veilira's feet. It was not much, maybe 10 degrees above freezing. On a normal day, Caleb would have called it pathetic. On Veir 9, it felt like mercy. Veilira lowered her gaze to the vent as if warmth itself were suspicious. "You repair dead things. I repair stubborn things. There is a difference." Caleb slid out from under the panel and sat back against a crate, breathing harder than he wanted her to notice. Dead things do not argue. The faintest change crossed her face. Not a smile. Not yet. A crack in the ice where one might have formed under better weather. He opened his med kit again and held up a sealed injector. "Neural stabilizer. Human formula, but the scanner says it will slow the shock response. I can adjust the dose." "No, Veilira." Her eyes snapped to him. "You use my name like you earned it." Caleb held the injector lower. "I pulled you out of a storm while you threatened to break my arm. That has to count for something. It counts as confusion. Then be confused and alive." The amber light flickered. For a moment, the storm outside filled the silence between them. She stared at the injector, then at his hands. Grease under the nails. Burn marks on the knuckles. A tremor in the left wrist from overused suit servos. Not a conqueror's hands. Not a collector's. A worker's hands. "Among my people," she said slowly, "a fallen warrior may refuse treatment." Caleb nodded. "Among mine, a medic gets annoying about it." "You are not a medic." "No, I am worse. I am a field engineer. We fix things that insist they cannot be fixed." Her jaw tightened at the word. Fixed. He saw the mistake as soon as it landed. The empty space behind her shoulders seemed to grow heavier in the amber light. Caleb set the injector on the crate between them and leaned back, giving her room to choose. "I did not mean that." Veolira looked away. Yes, you did, but not cruelly. The words came out flat, almost tired. She reached for the injector with slow fingers, then stopped before touching it. If I live, I return to no house. No command. No sky. The Aurelian rites are clear. Wings are not ornaments, Caleb Walker. They are memory, bloodline, rank, proof that the heavens accepted us. Her voice did not break. That made it worse. Without them, I am not a warrior. I am not a daughter. I am not even fit for the songs they sing over the dead. Caleb watched the heater vent flutter dust across the floor. He thought of Earth, of a little house in Ohio with a porch light his mother used to leave on even when he came home late from training. He thought of all the ways people could be told they were less than whole and still wake up the next morning with breath in their chest. Back home, he said, we had pilots who lost the use of their legs and still taught others how to fly. We had Marines who came back different and still carried rooms just by walking into them. We had people lose almost everything except the part that chose to keep going. Veolira turned toward him. The amber light caught the metallic sheen in her skin, soft along her cheek, bright along the ridges near her eyes. And your world honored them. Caleb exhaled. Not always. We are not as good as we should be. He picked up the injector and offered it again, palm open. But the best of us try. She studied him for a long time. Then she took it. Her fingers brushed his glove, cold even through the material. Caleb guided her through the dosage, careful, clinical, respectful. When the stabilizer entered her system, her shoulders eased by a fraction. Not relief. Permission to survive the next minute. Outside, thunder rolled low across the wreck field. Veolira closed her eyes. My mother taught me the first law of flight, she whispered. Never trust the ground. It only waits to claim what the sky releases. Caleb looked toward the narrow observation slit above the cargo hatch. Through the dirty glass, the storm had thinned just enough to reveal a strip of night, dark and endless, with a few hard stars burning beyond the clouds. He stood, crossed to the hatch, and wiped the glass with his sleeve until the stars sharpened. Maybe she was wrong about one thing. Veolira opened her eyes. What thing? Caleb stepped aside so she could see the sky without moving. The ground caught you today. She stared at the stars through the scarred window, and for the first time, her face held something other than shame. Not hope. That would have been too easy. But a question. Small. Dangerous. Alive. The storm did not end so much as lose interest. It moved east across the dead plain, dragging its orange belly over the horizon, leaving the Mercy Belle coated in frost and gray dust. Inside the wreck, the emergency heater breathed in weak cycles. Warm. Cold. Warm. Cold. Caleb counted the rhythm while he worked, because counting kept him awake, and staying awake kept both of them alive. He had stripped half the cargo bay for parts by then. 2 stabilizer rods from a collapsed storage rack. For magnetic clamps. A cracked inspection drone with 1 good gyroscope. 12 feet of lift cable. 1 emergency stretcher with a frame light enough to bend by hand and strong enough to hold under pressure. It was not much. It was exactly what he had. Veolira watched from the bench, wrapped in his jacket and the compression blanket, her posture still proud even when exhaustion tried to fold her inward. That is not a weapon, she said. Caleb tightened a bolt with 2 fingers and a prayer. No, it is not a medical brace. Not yet. Then what is it? He held the frame up to the amber light. It looked ugly. Crooked. Honest. A way to get you standing before your people arrive. Her expression changed at the word people. The temperature in the bay seemed to drop with it. Caleb noticed. He had been noticing more than she wanted him to. The way her eyes moved to the roof whenever distant engines rumbled. The way her hands stayed near the broken spear. The way she had not once asked to transmit a rescue signal to the Aurelian command band, even though their frequencies were burned into the emergency display beside her. You said they would come, Caleb said, keeping his voice low. You did not sound glad. Veolira looked toward the observation slit. Outside, the first stars were fading behind dawn smoke. Gladness is for children and diplomats. That is a terrible bumper sticker. She gave him a blank look. Human humor remains poorly constructed. Usually, Caleb set the frame on the floor and checked the drone gyroscope. It spun with a faint silver whine. So who was coming? Veolira was silent long enough for the heater to cycle twice. When she finally spoke, the command was gone from her voice. What remained was older, tighter. If the Sky Air Guard received my distress signal, they will come with healers. If the Silent Talons received it first, they will come with witnesses. Caleb stopped working. Witnesses to what? Her bright eyes met his in the dim bay. The honorable removal of a disgrace. The words sat between them like ice placed gently on a table. Caleb had heard soldiers talk about honor before. He had heard officers use it to polish ugly orders until they reflected something noble. But this was different. Veolyra said it the way someone names weather. A dangerous thing. A known thing. A thing that did not ask permission. You lost your wings in battle, Caleb said. That is not disgrace. To humans. To anyone with a working brain. Aurelian law is not built from your sympathy. Maybe it should borrow some. Her eyes flashed. For a second the warrior returned, sharp enough to cut through pain. Do not pity me. Caleb stood. The movement made his ribs complain, but he kept his face steady. I am not pitying you. I am angry for you. There is a difference. Veolyra looked away first. That surprised them both. Caleb picked up the half-made brace and carried it to her. This is going to hurt, he said. Most useful things do. It will not let me fly. No. He knelt, setting the frame beside her boots. It will let you stand. The silence that followed was almost too delicate to breathe through. Veolyra's fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. The skin along her forearms shimmered faintly, silver blue catching amber light like moonlit steel. You think standing is enough? Caleb began fastening the first support around her left leg, careful to avoid damaged armor seams. Today, yes. And tomorrow? Tomorrow can wait its turn. She watched his hands. The same hands that had cut her dying harness free. The same hands that had dragged heat back into a dead ship. The same hands that did not tremble when touching broken things. Among my people, she said, a wingless warrior is forbidden to stand before the council. We are carried behind a veil, so the young will not see what failure looks like. Caleb clipped the second support into place harder than necessary. The sound cracked through the cargo bay. Then your council is full of cowards. Veolyra inhaled sharply, not because he insulted them, because nobody did. Not to an Aurelian. Not to her. You speak like a man with no understanding of power. Caleb looked up at her. His gray eyes were tired, bloodshot, and stubborn in a very human way. No, I speak like a man who has seen power step over people and call it tradition. Outside, something moved across the dawn. A low vibration passed through the hull, too smooth for thunder, too measured for storm debris. Caleb's visor flickered, caught a signal, lost it, then caught it again. 3 descending craft. Aurelian design. Fast. Quiet. Coming straight toward the Mercy Bell. Veolyra heard them before the sensors confirmed it. Her face went still. All the color of argument drained from her expression, leaving only discipline and dread. They are here, she whispered. Caleb rose and sealed the last magnetic clamp on the brace. Healers. The first craft passed overhead, casting a blade-shaped shadow through the observation slit. Veolyra reached for her broken spear. Her hand did not shake now. No, Caleb turned toward the hatch as the hull lights dimmed under the shadow of landing ships. His oxygen warning blinked red. His rifle had 12% charge. His left shoulder barely moved. Behind him, Veolyra pushed one hand against the wall and tried to stand inside the ugly little frame he had built from wreckage and refusal. Caleb stepped between her and the door. Outside, metal feet touched the glass plane with perfect ceremony. Inside, he heard her brace lock with a soft, impossible click. She was not flying. Not yet. But she was upright when the first knock came. The knock came again, softer than Caleb expected. Not a fist. Not a battering charge. 3 precise taps against the outer hatch, each one spaced like a ritual. Veolyra stood behind him in the brace, one hand pressed against the wall, the other wrapped around the broken spear staff he had carried from the field. The frame Caleb built held her upright with a faint magnetic hum, but it could not hide the cost. Her breathing was controlled. Too controlled. Her bright eyes fixed on the door as if she were staring at a sentence already written. Caleb checked his rifle display. 12% charge. Maybe 1 warning shot. Maybe 2 if the universe felt generous. His oxygen warning blinked red at the corner of his visor, steady as a heartbeat. Do not open it, Veolyra said. They will cut through. Then I would rather not look scared while they do it. You should be scared. Caleb glanced back at her. I am. I just multitask. The third knock sounded. This time, a voice followed through the hull speaker, translated by the Rex dying system into smooth, formal English. Vealura Syth of the high air, present yourself for witness and judgment. The words changed the room. Even the heater seemed to pause. Vealira closed her eyes once, then opened them with the expression she must have worn before councils, before armies, before skies full of banners. I am here, she called. Caleb turned slightly. You do not have to answer them. Yes, she said. I do. Why? Her gaze did not leave the hatch. Because if I do not, they will say I hid. There it was. Not pride. Not vanity. The last clean piece of her life, held between both hands. Caleb understood that. A person could lose almost everything and still refuse to let strangers name the loss for them. He reached for the hatch release, then stopped. Rules. Vealira's voice lowered. Do not kneel. Do not offer your weapon first. Do not touch their armor. Do not insult the sky. That last one may be difficult. Caleb, the way she said his name made him look back. Not sharp. Not royal. Human, almost. If they demand I go with them, do not interfere. No. You do not know what that refusal means. I am learning. He hit the release. The hatch opened with a tired hydraulic groan, spilling cold dawn into the Mercy Bell. 3 Aurelian figures stood on the glass plain outside, tall and narrow in pale ceremonial armor. Their helmets were smooth and beak-like, their folded wing casings polished white, their cloaks moving in the faint afterwind though the air had gone still. Behind them, their landing craft hovered inches above the ground, silent as judgment. The center figure stepped forward. His armor bore no scratches. Caleb noticed that first. Everyone who had lived through the night had marks on them. This one looked preserved. Human, the figure said. Move aside. Caleb remained in the doorway. Morning to you too. The helmet tilted slightly. You shelter a disgraced asset of the Aurelian dominion. Vealira's fingers tightened on the spear staff. Caleb could hear the brace hum harder as she forced herself to stand straighter. She has a name, he said. Her name has been suspended pending witness. The words were calm. That made them worse. Caleb felt something hot and quiet move under his ribs. He had seen cruelty shout. He had seen cruelty laugh. But this polite kind, the kind with paperwork and ceremonies and clean armor, had always bothered him most. She needs medical transport, Caleb said. She needs acknowledgement of condition, the Aurelian replied. A warrior who can no longer ascend must be removed from visible command until the council confirms spiritual severance. Caleb stared at him. You mean you came all this way to hide her? We came to preserve order. Funny how often order looks like abandoning somebody. One of the side guards shifted. Not much. Enough. Vealira spoke before the moment sharpened. Commander Theron. The center figure turned toward her, and Caleb felt the air change again. Recognition passed through the 3 Aurelians, carefully buried beneath discipline. Vealira, Theron said, and for the first time his voice lost a fraction of its ceremony. You should not be standing. Yet I am. His gaze dropped to the brace. Human parts. Bent metal. Drone gyroscope. Salvaged cable. Something like distaste entered his posture. This display is unnecessary. Vealira lifted her chin. The silver blue of her skin caught the morning light, metallic and cold and beautiful in a way that made the battlefield around her seem less real. No, it is inconvenient. Caleb almost smiled. Theron did not. The council will decide what remains of your station. My station remains where I stand. For one fragile second, silence held. Then Theron raised his hand, and a small recording sphere floated from his wrist guard, its lens glowing pale green. Witness. That was what she had feared. Not rescue. Documentation. A clean record of shame. Caleb stepped fully out of the hatch, placing himself between the lens and Vealira. Turn that off. Theron's helmet angled back to him. You have no authority here. Caleb took one slow breath. His oxygen gauge flashed at 8%. His rifle was low. His suit was failing. He was one tired human engineer, standing barefoot close to 3 alien officers on a frozen glass battlefield. Maybe not, he said. But I have a question. Theron paused, perhaps surprised that the human had chosen words instead of fear. Caleb pointed toward the sky, where smoke still curled from the places ships had fallen. When she was dropping out of that mess, where were you? No one answered. The recording sphere hovered silently. Caleb's voice stayed low. Because I was here. I saw her fall. I saw no honor catch her. No law. No counsel. Just ground. Veolyra did not move behind him. But he heard the brace hum, steady now. So before you record what she lost, Caleb said, you are going to record who left her there. The lens turned slightly. Theron's hand froze in the air. And in the thin dawn light, Veolyra Syth stood behind a human who had nothing left to gain, watching the first crack appear in a law older than mercy. The recording sphere hovered between them, small and silent, its green lens reflecting Caleb's cracked visor and Veolyra's silver-blue face behind him. For a moment, no one moved. Even the wind seemed careful. Commander Theron stood with one hand raised, white armor untouched by ash, folded wing casings gleaming like polished bone. Caleb could hear his own suit struggling to keep him upright. Oxygen at 7%. Coolant unstable. Power reserve critical. The warnings stacked in his ear with the patience of machines that did not care about courage. Your question is irrelevant, Theron said. Caleb nodded slowly. That is what people say when the answer is ugly. One of the other Aurelians shifted toward him, but Theron stopped him with 2 fingers. A courtly gesture. Almost bored. You mistake survival instinct for moral authority, human. We did not abandon Veolyra Syth. The battlefield was inaccessible under ion fire and atmospheric collapse. Caleb looked past him to the clean ships hovering behind the glass ridge. Their engines were warm. Their hulls had no storm scoring. They had been close enough to arrive before dawn. Close enough to know. Then your timing got real convenient, he said. Veolyra's voice came from behind him, low but steady. Theron, open the command log. The commander's helmet turned toward her. That is not your request to make. It is not a request. The brace around her legs hummed harder as she took one step forward. It was ugly and uneven, built from salvage and stubbornness, but it held. Caleb felt rather than saw the effort in her movement. The way the air tightened around pain. The way pride had to become muscle when muscle was not enough. I am still Sky-Air Guard, she said. Until council judgment is sealed, my access remains active. Theron did not answer. That was the second crack. Caleb caught it. So did Veolyra. Her eyes brightened, not with hope, but with recognition. You did not come for judgment, she said. You came before judgment could happen. The recording sphere drifted an inch lower. Its lens kept watching. Caleb looked at the device, then at the broken relay panel inside the Mercy Bell. A thought moved through him, slow at first, then sharp enough to cut through exhaustion. The transport's emergency system was dead for broadcast, but not for storage. It had captured everything since the storm. Every word, every signal handshake, every Aurelian identification ping. His hands moved before he explained. He stepped backward into the cargo bay, grabbed the relay cable he had stripped earlier, and jammed it into the side port of his suit. Sparks snapped against his glove. His visor went half dark. The suit voice warned him about unauthorized power routing. He whispered, I know. Theron stepped toward the hatch. Stop. Caleb looked up. That is the first honest thing you have said. He connected the second cable to the transport recorder. The amber lights flickered. The recording sphere outside blinked, confused by a second signal riding its own witness channel. Veolyra understood first. Caleb. Her voice carried warning and wonder together. You are linking their witness feed to the ship memory. Trying to. That system is damaged. So am I. We are bonding. The panel buzzed, then flashed blue. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the air filled with sound. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a cold playback from before dawn. Aurelian command codes. Encrypted proximity pings. 3 silent Talon craft holding 5 miles away during the storm. Waiting. Watching. Not approaching. Veolyra's face went still as the evidence unfolded in the open air. Theron's polished silence finally looked heavy. The side guards turned their helmets toward him, just slightly, but enough. Caleb leaned one hand against the console, breathing through the thin air in his suit. There, he said. Now the witness has witnesses. Theron's voice dropped. You do not understand what you are interfering with. Caleb looked at Veolyra. She stood in a broken human ship, supported by an impossible frame, ash on her skin, no wings at her back, and more dignity than every clean uniform outside combined. I understand enough. Veolyra took another step. The brace clicked, strained, held. She moved past Caleb and faced the recording sphere herself. No veil. No lowered head. No hiding the empty architecture behind her shoulders. "Let the council see me," she said. "Let them see what was taken. Let them see who waited. And let them see who crossed the battlefield when no law required him to." The sphere's green lens brightened as the transmission widened beyond the landing site, climbing into Aurelian command bandwidth. Theron reached toward his wrist control, but one of his own guards caught his arm. Not forcefully, just enough to say the sky was listening now. Caleb's knees nearly gave, but he locked them. Veilira glanced back once, not asking for help, not needing permission, just making sure the human who had refused to look away was still there. He was. Barely. But there. And sometimes barely was the shape Mercy wore when it had nothing left but breath. The transmission climbed through the smoke like a flare no storm could swallow. Caleb saw it only as a thin blue line across the cracked display, but Veilira felt it before the machines confirmed it. Her people were listening. Somewhere above Ver, 9, in command ships hidden behind cloud cover and old pride, Aurelian officers were seeing her without wings, without a veil, without permission to disappear. The thought should have broken her. Instead, it made her stand straighter. The brace groaned softly around her legs. Caleb heard the sound and reached toward the support cable, but stopped himself. She did not need a hand yet. She needed the room to prove she could remain upright. Commander Theron knew it too. The silence behind his helmet had changed from authority to calculation. His guards no longer stood in perfect alignment. One had lowered his chin. The other kept his hand away from his wrist control, as if distance from the lie might become innocence. "This feed is unauthorized," Theron said. "So was leaving her in the storm," Caleb answered. His voice sounded thin inside his helmet. "Oxygen at 5%. The number pulsed red, then blurred at the edges. He blinked until the world came back. Veilira's eyes moved to him for the smallest second. Concern tried to cross her face. She buried it under command. "Theron," she said, "by the witness law of the high air, answer before the open record. Why did silent Talon craft hold position during my distress call? Operational assessment. Why were healers not deployed? Atmospheric instability. Why was my command access flagged for spiritual severance before council review?" Theron did not answer. That was the third crack. It did not sound like metal. It sounded like 1,000 years of ceremony meeting one ugly fact and finding no place to stand. The recording sphere brightened again. A new voice entered through the open channel, older than Theron's, colder, and far away. "Veilira SYTH. Confirm visual status." Caleb saw her shoulders tighten. The old fear returned, not of pain, not of death, but of being seen only as damage. She took one breath. Then another. "Confirmed," she said. "I stand." The distant voice paused. "Your wings are absent." The words were clinical. Caleb hated them. Veilira's fingers tightened around the broken spear, but her voice stayed level. "My oath is not." Static moved through the channel. Then other signals appeared on Caleb's display. Aurelian ships. More of them. Human rescue bands too, faint but approaching from the west. The whole sky was waking up. Theron stepped forward suddenly, not rushing, not attacking, simply trying to close the distance and reclaim the ritual before it escaped him completely. Caleb moved first. Not with force. With placement. He put his failing suit and tired body between Theron and Veilira again. The way a door remains a door even when the house is burning. "You are done standing in front of her," Theron said. Caleb swallowed against the dryness in his throat. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing." Theron's guard reached out, but Veilira struck the floor once with the base of her spear staff. The sound rang through the Mercy bell and out across the glass plane. Not violent. Ceremonial. Final. Everyone froze. She stepped forward. The brace clicked. Her knees almost folded. Caleb saw it happen and shifted without thinking, but Veilira lifted one hand. "Stop. Just that." He obeyed. It may have been the hardest thing he had done all morning. She took the second step alone. Then a third. The ugly frame held. The broken drone gyroscope whined. Salvaged cable trembled. A human machine, built from wreckage, carried an alien air across the line her own people had drawn around shame. She came to stand beside Caleb, not behind him. The difference changed everything. "No more veils," Veilira said into the open channel. No more songs that erase the living because the sight of them troubles the comfortable. I was left beneath a burning sky. A human crossed it. If your law cannot tell which of us kept honor, then your law has lost its wings, not I. Caleb turned his head toward her. For the first time since the fall, she was not speaking as someone who needed rescue. She was speaking as someone returning from the place they had tried to bury her name. The distant channel remained silent. Then one by one, the two silent Talon guards lowered their recording visors. Not to Varen, to Veilira. A gesture Caleb did not understand until she inhaled sharply. Respect. Varen stood alone between his own lies and the open sky. Caleb's oxygen hit 3%. His vision tunneled. He felt his knees soften, and this time no pride answered. Before he could fall, Veilira's hand caught his arm. The brace shook under the shared weight, but she held him. The warrior without wings held the human who had taught her not to be ashamed of standing. Above them, the clouds parted enough for sunlight to touch the glass plane, and every broken piece of metal shone like something waiting to be remade. Caleb did not remember sitting down. 1 second he was on his feet with Veilira's hand locked around his arm. The next the glass plane tilted, the dawn folded sideways, and the floor of the Mercy Bell rose gently to meet him. Not a fall. Not quite. More like his body had filed a final complaint and won. Sound came back in pieces. Veilira saying his name. The soft panic hidden under command. The drone gyroscope in her brace whining as she lowered herself beside him. Commander therein speaking sharply into a private channel that was no longer private enough. Then another sound, deeper and wider, rolling over the battlefield from the west. Human engines. Caleb smiled before he opened his eyes. That better be rescue, he whispered. Veilira pressed his emergency mask tighter against the broken seal of his helmet. Breathe, Caleb Walker. Trying to make it look dramatic. You are succeeding poorly. The mask hissed as the reserve canister fed him thin, cold air. It tasted like metal and old pennies, but it was air, and that made it beautiful. Outside, 2 Earth rescue craft descended through the clearing smoke, bulky and scarred, all function and no grace. Their floodlights swept over the Aurelian ships, the shattered transport, the silver-blue warrior kneeling beside a human engineer she had been taught to despise. No one fired. No one shouted. The open witness channel had made the whole battlefield sacred in the most inconvenient way. Then the Aurelian command band split open with a new transmission. This voice was not old. It was ancient, layered with harmonics that made the wreck's broken speakers tremble. All units, stand down. By authority of the Dominion Crown, witness review is active. Veilira went very still. Caleb saw it through half-lidded eyes. The way her hand tightened once against the floor. The way even therein seemed to lose an inch of height under his polished armor. Who was that? Caleb asked. Veilira did not look away from the sky. The High Matriarch. The speaker crackled again. Veilira Syth, daughter of the Ninth Wind, sky heir of the Eastern Houses. Your status is recognized under emergency crown protection. Caleb blinked. The words came slowly through the fog in his head. Sky heir. Daughter. Crown protection. He turned his eyes toward her. You were going to mention the royal part when? For the first time, Veilira almost smiled. It was small and exhausted and gone too quickly, but it was real. You did not ask. I asked if you were important. You asked if I could stand. Priorities. Her gaze softened, then hardened again as the High Matriarch continued. Commander therein of the Silent Talons, your command logs have been seized. Your delay during an active distress beacon and premature severance filing are entered into formal inquiry. Theron's helmet lowered a fraction. Around him, the 2 guards stepped away. Not far. Far enough. Caleb understood that distance. It was the shape guilt made when it wanted witnesses to know it had changed sides. The human rescue hatch opened with a rush of steam, and medics in gray armor crossed the glass with stretchers and oxygen rigs. One of them, a broad woman with a Texas flag patch on her sleeve, knelt beside Caleb and glanced at Veilira. Ma'am, are you preventing treatment or assisting it? Veilira looked confused by the wording. Assisting. Good. Keep his head steady. Caleb would have laughed if breathing had not become a full-time job. The medic cut away his cracked helmet seal and fitted a better mask over his face. Warm oxygen flooded his lungs. The world sharpened by degrees. Amber light. Frost on Veilira's lashes. Ash in the seams of her armor. the brace around her legs shaking, not from fear now, but from overuse. She had been holding herself upright too long. Sit, Caleb rasped. That is an order from a man on the floor. Your authority is questionable. My floor experience is current. She lowered herself onto the cargo ramp beside him, still keeping one hand on his shoulder because the medic had told her to, and because she had not let go yet. Above them, Aurelian ships opened their wing-like panels, not for attack, but in ceremonial acknowledgement. One by one, their lights shifted from cold white to pale gold. Veilira stared up at them. Her face did not break. Her eyes did. The High Matriarch spoke once more, softer this time. Let the record show. The Sky Heir stands by witness of an enemy who chose mercy when her own guard chose delay. No one spoke after that. Even the medics moved quietly. Caleb turned his head just enough to see Veilira watching the sky receive her name back. She had not regained her wings. Not yet. But something had returned to her shoulders, invisible and heavier than flight. The right to be seen. The right to remain. The right to stand beneath the same sky that had once let her fall. The medical bay of the Earth rescue craft was not built for silence, but silence found it anyway. It settled between the oxygen pumps, the soft, beeping monitors, the low vibration of engines climbing away from Ver 9. Caleb lay on a narrow cot beneath a thermal sheet, his cracked suit stacked in pieces beside the wall like something that had carried him as far as it could and then quit with honor. His face was pale under the cleaner light, white skin marked by dust, heat, and the stubborn little cuts that always appeared after a bad day in armor. He was awake, though barely, watching through the observation glass as the battlefield shrank beneath them into a gray scar across black glass. Across the bay, Veilira stood with both hands on the rail, wearing a medical support frame built by Aurelian healers over Caleb's ugly salvage brace. The new frame was smoother, lighter, almost elegant, but she had refused to let them remove the old gyroscope from the Mercy Bell. It hung now at her hip like a charm, dented and humming softly, a small human machine that had helped her stand before an empire. Outside the window, Aurelian ships formed around the human rescue craft, not surrounding it, escorting it. Their hull lights glowed pale gold. Caleb noticed and gave a tired breath that might have been a laugh. Looks like we got upgraded. Veilira turned from the glass. The silver blue of her skin looked calmer in the medbay light, less like metal, more like moonlight over water. Her bright eyes still carried the battlefield, but not the shame. They honor you. They are honoring you. No, she said. They are learning the difference. She crossed the bay slowly. Each step carried a quiet mechanical note from the support frame, but she did not flinch from the sound. When she reached his cot, she placed one hand over her chest, then lowered it toward him, palm open. Caleb had seen enough Aurelian ceremony by then to know this was not casual. What does that one mean, he asked. It means I name a witness before the sky. Sounds official. It is older than our crown. Caleb looked at her hand, then back to her face. I should probably be standing for it. You will remain exactly where the medic ordered you to remain. That is unfairly logical. I learned from watching humans survive by ignoring logic. I decided to try the opposite. This time he smiled. Small. Real. The med bay doors opened, and an Aurelian healer entered carrying a sealed case of white crystal and brushed steel. She bowed to Veilira. Then, to Caleb's surprise, bowed to him as well. Inside the case lay two folded structures, not wings in the old sense, not replacements for what had been lost, but something new. Lightweight carbon ribs. Silver membranes threaded with gold current. Human engineering around an Aurelian flight core. Prototype was stamped in English on the corner beside Aurelian script. Caleb stared at it. Who built that? Veilira touched the case with two fingers. Your people sent design notes before you lost consciousness. My healers called them reckless. Were they wrong? No, the ghost of a smile touched her mouth. But they also called them brilliant. Days passed before she tried them. Not many. Veilira did not have the patience for healing schedules written by people who had never lost the sky. The first test happened in the upper hangar of the joint medical carrier, where the bay doors opened onto a field of stars. Caleb arrived in a wheelchair because the Texas medic refused to negotiate, and because Veilira had threatened to carry him if he argued. The new wings rested along her back, folded and trembling with pale light. They did not hide the scars. They framed them. Caleb liked that. Veolyra stepped to the edge of the launch platform. Below her, nothing waited but open space, safety fields, and memory. For the first time since he had known her, fear crossed her face without disguise. Caleb rolled closer. You ready? She looked at the stars, then at the dented gyroscope fixed near her waist, then at him. No, the hangar lights reflected in her eyes until they looked almost human. But I am not falling. She stepped forward. The wings opened with a sound like sunrise through glass. She did not soar at first. She hovered, unsteady, held by machines, courage, and the strange mercy of a species that fixed broken things without asking whether the universe approved. Caleb watched her rise 6 feet, then 10, then higher, until the pale gold escort lights outside seemed to gather around her. No one cheered. No one needed to. The silence did the work. Veolyra looked down once, not as a queen, not as a weapon, not as a symbol returned to service, but as someone who had survived being renamed by loss. Caleb lifted 2 fingers from the armrest. She answered with the same gesture, awkward and perfect. Later, the official record would say the incident changed Aurelian law. It would say wingless warriors could no longer be veiled from council. It would say human medical engineers and Aurelian healers began the first shared restoration program in the Dominion. Records like clean endings. Caleb remembered something simpler. A woman fell. A man ran. A law cracked. A sky opened. He had not given her back the wings she lost. He had given her a reason to face the sky again.